Hey guys, what's up? Dingo Crikey here with another commentary video. This time I'm going to be discussing recently released images of the Transformers Unite Warriors Grand Galvatron Combiners. So cool stuff. Not only is Unite Warriors getting their own version of Cyclonus, which of course has a different color scheme than the Combiner Wars version has, but Takara is also giving the Unite Warriors line a whole team for Cyclonus, which has been given the name Grand Galvatron. And this is obviously pretty exciting on a number of levels. I mean, in the most basic way, it's just always cool to see Unite Warriors take on the figures, but it's also cool that Cyclonus is in fact getting his own team, and for me what's probably the most exciting part of this reveal is that all of the members of the team are just a total compilation of a bunch of different characters from the Transformers universe, of course using Combiner Wars molds, but repainted and in some cases remolded to fit those characters. And if you haven't seen them already, you should know that none of these are new molds. However, I don't think that's necessarily a turnoff here, as the diversity and oddity of the characters that they picked out is enough to warrant interest. Now, before we get to the images, I just wanted to make a quick announcement in response to some comments I've gotten on other videos. Since we're already talking about the Unite Warriors line, I have gotten several comments of people asking for me to do a second Combiner Wars versus Unite Warriors, as now we do have more figures revealed, and I do definitely appreciate that feedback and plan on doing a second video sometime in the future. However, I want to wait a little bit longer to do the comparison, because right now we have Optimus Maximus, we have Devastator, and now we have Cyclonus, but I would prefer to wait and see the Unite Warriors version of the Combaticons before I make another video, just so I have more content to cover, especially because with Devastator there aren't a whole lot of differences. There are some, and they're very significant, but probably not as interesting to talk about. Anyways, I just wanted to give that heads up, and now let's get to looking at the images. And first up, we have Deluxe Class Curse Armada Thrust, which is of course the Air Raid mold repainted and remolded to homage Armada Thrust, which, if you're like me, got into Transformers with Armada, this is a really exciting reveal, considering what a hilarious and dynamic character he was in the show, and how good this looks, especially for a repaint. They really picked a nice figure for this character and did a pretty spot-on job for the color scheme. Comparing him to his Armada counterpart, like, you can find correlations in just about everywhere. It's like they left nowhere untouched when it came to putting him into his Armada colors. Even for things that were different on the original design, such as the hands being thrusters and him having the missiles on the legs, they still used the colors to kind of improvise for what they don't have, and it has a really strong semblance of the character. Even in vehicle mode, they gave him that circle on the center of the jet, they trimmed the wings with that tealish color, which really helps complete the look of this character. And I guess I should just speak on the color scheme in general. It looks pretty nice in of itself. He has a dull lime green as his sort of primary standout color, gray as kind of like the backdrop color. That's not the technical word, but I think you know what I mean. And then we have a little bit of red to contrast the rest of the color scheme, and I like the way the red works in. They placed it as it was on his original design, and I think it's just nice for the color scheme, though I'm sure some people would disagree. So not only was it nice to see another homage to an Armada character, but it also gives us a figure with a very unique color scheme. Paint placement too, it looks great. Like, a lot of the other Combiner Wars figures, especially in the Unite Warriors, have been criticized for lacking colors, but this guy, I think he has all the colors you would want anymore, and it might be a little bit too much, so they definitely found a really nice balance here. Now, as far as the remolding, they only did so much. They didn't redo the hands. I think it's only the head sculpt. I don't know, maybe a little bit in the front of the jet. I'm gonna just say the head sculpt. I really appreciate that because, of course, the squid head was so important to his character in Armada and the way the other characters related to him. And it looks pretty nice. It doesn't look perfect. I'm curious to see how the face looks, because from here it looks a little bit off, but obviously they had to make some accommodations, especially with how long the point on top of his head could be, in relation to how he would transform and all that stuff. So overall, I'm happy with the remolding. They could have done some stuff on the legs, but I kind of like this better. Those missiles on the legs were kind of awkward to me. So final thoughts, I really like the looks of this guy. Thrust being probably one of my favorite characters in Armada, I can say this guy does a really nice representation. Would it be nice to see Thrust get his own new mold in the future? Yeah, but I could definitely settle for this for a while. It's already pretty much sold me on buying this set. But of course, the other figures can contribute to or detract from the set. And to see which ones do or not, let's move on to Ghost Starscream. And right away, I'm going to say this guy is a huge contribution. Right off the bat, he's like one of the most unique looking figures in the entire Combiner Wars line, and just as a Transformer in general. And of course, that has a lot to do with the figure being almost entirely translucent. Now, if you don't like translucent figures for whatever reason, then you're not going to like this no matter what. However, even if you do, you may have some problems due to the fact he does have some opaque parts. I could see why some people would have a problem with this. If we're supposed to believe he's a ghost, it does kind of break that general look to have that big yellow piece, which at least at this point, it does look to, in fact, be opaque. Don't know about the head, but it probably would be, and the two blasters definitely look as though they are. Nevertheless, personally, I don't think it's a big detractor. The figure being entirely clear can have a little bit of a empty look to it, which maybe you would want for a ghost, but I don't think the few opaque parts they added were really a bad way to jazz his look up a little bit. Looking away from that aspect of the overall look and the colors, he has a pretty good distribution of the different colors all throughout. Maybe not as much as Thrust, but being he's a homage to a G1 character, he definitely doesn't need them to look more accurate. And the distribution of colors looks pretty nice too, having blue on the lower arms and legs, having the red body, and then clear parts all throughout. I think they did a pretty nice job, and it's pretty standard for Starscream. Speaking of that, how does he look compared to his original counterpart, which is basically, in G1, Starscream, who is see-through with a bunch of sparkles around him. So they did basically as good as they could do. Maybe some people want them to use sparkly plastic, but I could settle for this. I believe this is a remolded head, which is nice. However, this is not the first mold I would choose for Starscream, namely, other than just the differences you're going to have with the transformation, because it looks kind of bulky, which is a look Starscream has been given from time to time, such as Cybertron and the movie, but considering it's a G1 homage, I may have preferred something at least like Air 8, even though Thrust is already using that mold. I'm also a little bit thrown off by the spikes he has around his shoulders. Now, some people, like myself, may see this as kind of un-Starscream-esque, but it does kind of look like those two, I don't know what to call them, thingamajigs he had around his head in G1, so if you consider that the correlation, then I guess this works, but overall, the look of this guy is really nice, both in robot and in jet mode. Don't have too many complaints, and he's definitely a contribution to this set. So, moving on to the next one, we have Voyager class Cyclonus, or as this one is called, Tactician Cyclonus. Not really sure why the Tactician is added there, but it is interesting that that was the name of the first episode in which Thrust appeared in Transformers Armada, so don't know if there was a homage going on there, but it is interesting. Nevertheless, this guy has a quite different look from our Hasbro counterpart, as he is the only one who was released in the Combiner Wars line as well. However, he almost looks like a completely different character. This color scheme even more so helps him look different from Silverbolt. And as for Cyclonus, this does look a lot like some renditions of G1 Cyclonus. Now I say some because depending on whether or not you're looking at the cartoons, the movies, the comics, some of the artwork created afterwards, Cyclonus's colors really seem to vary. Either he has a color scheme more like this, with sort of a purplish blue color, or a really blue color here, or he's pretty much all purple and white, and they went with more of the bluish color scheme here. I gotta say, it looks pretty nice on this mold, and it's definitely cool to see something different. So the overall look is nice, and it definitely is a cool and different homage to his G1 character. Paint placement is also done really well. He has a lot of different paint applications all throughout. A lot of it's kind of standard, but there are a few little details that I think really help set him apart. Especially being the darker paint on the toes and the knees having the additional purple paint. It's a cool detail which may look a little bit off-putting, but they do have the lower arms in primarily that same color to kind of balance it out. So I think that was a really nice choice. Maybe he could have used a little bit more of that purple throughout his body because it does look a little bit awkward, but overall I'm not complaining. My main problems with the color scheme are with what we can see on his legs of what will form Grand Galvatron's body. You know, sometimes these guys do suffer from their larger models, but yeah, it's a little bit hard to get around on this one. One thing that's also notable is that they changed up his gun quite significantly, making the barrel of the gun a translucent orange, which is a nice homage to Galvatron, of course. Vehicle mode also looks superb. Nice distribution of colors and overall nice color scheme. This guy has a unique color scheme as well. So everything appears to be kind of toned down and dulled up, a little bit of a silvery look to it, at least in these early images, and I think it looks really nice. Depending on how the final images of this figure look, you know, considering these are probably kind of photoshopped, I would say this could probably be my favorite rendition of this mold. And I really can't think of too many reasons to complain about it, other than, you know, those problems on the lower leg. That does look a bit obtrusive. Now, our next one is a bit of a wild card, even considering all of these guys are kind of wild cards. And this guy is called Wandering Roller. And a lot of you probably aren't familiar with this character at all, or you're familiar with Roller as being the sort of little non-sentient bot that drives around on Optimus's trailer, but this is in fact a actual character and one from the IDW comic books. Now, I haven't looked into him a ton, but from what I understand, he was kind of introduced in Optimus Prime's prequel story when Optimus was Orion Pax, and basically he served on kind of like the same squad or team as him alongside, I believe, Ratchet. And there is some intrigue with this character, but that would get into spoilers. But basically, Optimus named his little minion, Roller, after this guy, who is released amongst a bunch of other Decepticons, though you can see on his vehicle mode he has an Autobot symbol, so that definitely is interesting. But looking at the figure, he does look pretty close to his IDW counterpart. Obviously the design is pretty different, but the color scheme's pretty spot on. Guy's color scheme is primarily a dark green, then he has kind of a neutral color that's silver, some other darker shades of silver, and then a really bright reddish orange. I don't know how everyone feels about it. I think it looks really nice though. The reddish orange is a nice contrast. It might look a little bit off, but overall I think it looks really nice against the dark green. And nice paint distribution here as well. He really has all of the main colors and even the minor ones spread all throughout the body, which looks even better when you give him that tool, as he has in this picture, to give him some of that reddish orange on his arm. So not only does he have a cool color scheme and nice distribution, but also a really nice amount of paint apps. The inside of his wheels are painted that light, dull bluish color. He obviously has the dark green, but in various different places. And looking at the feet alone, he has like 3 colors right around there, and I don't think they look bad. I think they did a pretty nice job on it. I don't believe this guy has any remolding, which is a little bit of a shame because I don't think this is what his head sculpt looks like in the comics. But for me, it's not a deal breaker. If you're really into the comics, maybe that does kind of bother you. So overall, robot mode looks great. Vehicle mode isn't nearly as exciting, but it definitely doesn't look bad, just kind of bland on the top, but we do see a lot of that with this mold. Nevertheless, I can let it pass, and overall I think this is a really cool looking figure. Very unique in the way it looks, and also very unique as a character. And even though I don't really know who this guy is, he's sort of like a new character to me, so that's definitely exciting. Always cool to have something to really mix up the group. Then the final of the combiners we have Deluxe Class Zombie War Breakdown. Takara gets another rendition of Prime Breakdown, and we can't get even one! Hasbro, give us a good Prime Breakdown. Anyways, yeah, you can guess I do like the looks of this guy. However, he isn't exactly my choice for a Prime Breakdown remake. I mean, other than the vehicle mode looking pretty close, the robot mode is very different looking from the hulking physique that his robot mode had. I still have a problem with them using this mold for Ironhide just because it looks so scrawny. So obviously there could be some problems with that. I would say this guy is probably the least accurate in mold design to his original counterpart, though the vehicle mode isn't a bad representation. Nevertheless, for what they had to work with, I think they did a really nice job at mirroring his prime counterpart. Looking at his colors for comparison alone is just interesting because they incorporate all of the different colors and placement, but they do it in a unique way considering the design is so different. He does have the gray that he has on his legs and even his feet that he had in the original design, but the layout is a little bit different. Also with the body and the abdominal area giving him those touches of yellow, but it's more of a line rather than just two spots as it was on the original design. Altogether, I think it makes for a really nice homage, probably better than if they were to basically take the exact same thing and just put it on this mold. Get a lot of breakdown vibes from this, and it just looks nice as a figure, as is mostly the case for this entire team. They really don't have that lack of color problem that a lot of new Transformers have. The paint details in his robot mode just look so good, and take a look at the head sculpt too. Not only is it nicely remolded, but the blue and the silver are mixed really nicely. He even has a little bit of blue on the sides of his face, which is a neat touch, and then obviously the face is a bright orange color. Now, usually I'm not a fan of faces that aren't those traditional colors such as gray, white, light blue. However, it does work for this guy, and of course if they want to do the best homage possible to his original counterpart, it's going to have to be like this. Also, it helps add a nice contrast. He might look a tad bland if he were to just have one of the traditional face colors. So overall, paint applications look great, make a nice homage to the original Prime Breakdown, and I think this is probably the best we've seen of this mold. Personally, this is one of my least favorite molds in the Combiner Wars line. While the vehicle mode is solid in appearance, it even feels kind of empty, and that carries on, of course, to the robot mode, which just has a very hollow feel to it. Also, the look, I don't know if I'd say it's incomplete, but there are just a ton of vehicle parts that are really obviously carried over, and maybe could have been helped with a more complex transformation. Basically, it looks like Hasbro got kind of lazy with the design. Nevertheless, the dark and detailed color scheme of this guy pretty much makes me overlook all of those issues. I mean, they're still going to be there in the figure, but it really does help it just look all around better. So that sums up all of the individual figures in this set. I think they all look fantastic and definitely make this box set worth a buy. But of course, one of the big factors for a lot of people is going to be what the combined form looks like. So let's move on to Grand Galvatron. Now this guy does look like sort of a mismatch, which I guess we can't expect with such diversity in each one of these figures. Each figure has at least some unique colors in their color scheme, and all of them except for Prime Breakdown have a good mix of colors, which makes him kind of stand out like a sore right leg, I guess. Then Ghost Starscream also looks a little bit odd, being translucent when the rest of the set is clearly opaque. So that's just to name a few of the problems people may have with this guy. Some may also find it a flaw that there really isn't a consistent theme here. In the past we had Superion, who was comprised of all aircraft transformers, the Stunticons, all ground vehicles, mostly cars, and even the Combaticons, which have a mix, are all military vehicles, so that kind of connects them in some way. Whereas with this guy, it seems pretty random. But on the topic of colors, I can't really defend it too well, but I do feel like there is some unifying factor, and I feel like that is in the color blue, and I use that very broadly, but each figure does have some amount of blue. Cyclonus obviously has it in the body, that really light, faded blue. Thrust, his gray almost has a bit of a bluish look to it, so I think that kind of works. Starscream obviously has that bright color, break down a dark blue. As far as Roller goes, he does have a few details here and there that have a bluish tint to him, so it might be a bit of a stretch, but I do think it helps make the form look a bit more cohesive. We also have them using yellow and orange throughout, which are basically like opposite on the wheel to blue depending on the shade, so I think that kind of helps as well. I also feel like a lot of these guys, with the exception of Starscream, have a lot of toned down colors in their schemes, so that might also help. So there are definitely problems here. I could see why people wouldn't like it, but I can't help but find it sort of appealing in a way. Now, as far as it fitting the theme of Galvatron, right off the bat, it looks nothing like Galvatron's traditional look. I mean, we have the head, but the color scheme is completely different. I'm honestly not sure what they were going for here. However, it does share some resemblance to the original Galvatron figure released for the 1986 movie, which was strangely not given the color scheme Galvatron actually had in the film, but a color scheme that was comprised of a sort of silverish white color, red, and some of the colors we see here. So I'm not sure why they would choose that for Galvatron. I mean, it does work with Cyclonus' color scheme. If they added purple, that would definitely clash with probably every other color in here. So I don't know if that was the intention, but it does kind of resemble that. Nevertheless, it is pretty cool looking overall, but I could definitely see people not liking this form. So, final thoughts on this set. Overall, I think this looks incredible. Now, the combined form definitely isn't its shining point, but it's each figure that not only makes a really nice spot-on homage, but also just looks really good in itself. We have an exciting group of characters. The color schemes are all well done, and especially in regards to paint applications, I think I could say that the figures in this set have the best paint applications of either Combiner Wars or Unite Warriors, and this is probably the most excited that I have personally been for anything in the Combiner Wars line. I'm definitely going to want to purchase this when it comes out in April of 2015. At this point, I do believe that is the release date for those who are interested. And that's really all that I have to say about this set. You guys can, of course, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of this set overall? Which figure in particular is your favorite? And do you plan on buying the set? Considering it's an only Takara release, I'm guessing a lot of people aren't going to. You know, they are more pricey, and that's been a problem with getting some of the Unite Warrior sets for me in the past, but this is one I definitely want to put out the money for. Definitely looks worth it. Along with your thoughts on this video, you can also drop off any topic suggestions you have for future commentary videos. This is sort of like an analysis news video, and if you want me to discuss any other Transformers news, you can let me know about it in the comment section below, and I'll consider doing a video on it. But it doesn't have to be on a news story, it could just be a general Transformers topic. It doesn't even have to relate to Combiner Wars or the Transformers films. Could be one of the previous Transformers cartoons. Just Transformers related media. Or if you have any Bionicle topics, I might also be interested in those. For more Transformers content, you can check out my playlist and my channel, and just keep up with the channel for regular updates. Anyways, that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and have a good one, guys. I'll see you soon.